behind my back.
Lewis, who's on first?
The sheriff.
Good morning. The sheriff is slated to go first at 10 o'clock. Trying to reach out to him right now.
Okay. Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are calling our 2023 budget work session to order this morning. Myself and the commissioners are here at 903 Main Street in the auditorium in the heart of Old Town Conyers. This morning we will yield to our CFO and Executive Director of Finance, Director Mark Lewis. Good morning, Director Lewis.
Good morning, Chair, Commissioner Williams, Commissioner Washington. Welcome to day 2 of the budget hearings. Today, we will hear from the Sheriff's Office, Fire and Rescue, Emergency Management Agency, General Services, and Technology Services. We will begin the day with Executive Director Sue Sanders presenting General Services.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm going to start out today with Fleet Services. I have a presentation for Fleet Services and then one for Capital and Facilities. So they're both very different, but I won't be super long. Next slide, please. So the vision of Fleet Services is to provide value to the citizens by keeping up with trends and also implementing measures for operational efficiency. General Services in general is a internal service department. So we service all of the departments and also services the citizens with our facilities and fleet. Next slide, please. So some of the successes, we completed our 2nd annual vehicle inspection event, and that is once a year that we have every vehicle come over to Fleet Services. We inspect it, we put the necessary paperwork in the vehicles for accidents, procedures on what to do, who to call in those instances, and we also check the condition and make sure that they're being kept up. And we report back to the department leadership, and most of the time the department leaders come during the inspection so they can see what their vehicles look like. We also implemented a monthly GPS accountability report. So at the beginning of each month, it's automatically sent to the directors based on the GPS statistics from their vehicles in their department. So you can look at things like idle time, speeding, seatbelt usage. So anything that has a flag on that, the department leaders are now being trained in that application, and they'll be addressing those as they come up. So that we're ensuring not only most importantly, the safety of the employees as they're driving around, but also efficiencies like idling to save money, save costs. We also did implement a 24-hour vehicle training, which we just did a few months ago, and also anyone that has a 24-hour assigned vehicle must sign a form with what they're responsible for as a 24-hour vehicle driver, so that there's accountability. If there's anything out of order, then we address that. Opportunities are looking at a 5-year fleet replacement plan, and we're currently in the middle of that. And we're also continuing to train the department leadership on the GeoTab data so that they can implement more measures to become more efficient with their fleets and how their employees are operating them. One other initiative we are working on, which is a hot topic all over the country, is the electrified fleet and looking into those options. So we sent the fleet manager and the operations manager to a conference in Atlanta regarding that. There's a lot more involved than just putting in. We have one outlet for the tax commissioner's vehicle, but in order to actually implement that, for the fleet, we really have to invest in infrastructure. So when we're looking at new facilities, such as the government complex, that will be one consideration. And there is a lot of funding out there to look at different ways to fund those type of things, but it is a big undertaking. So we are starting that. We have the one electric vehicle. We are going to look at getting another for general government in the future here shortly, so that we can look at how that works for different functions. For instance, the courier. That would be one that would probably benefit from the electric because they're just going around in the county to see how it works out. But right now, getting an electric vehicle, is an issue. Vehicles in general are, but so we are looking at options for that. Challenges for fleet, always the staffing, and also just keeping on with the departments and the leadership for maintenance and training. Training on operating equipment is a big thing. These large pieces of equipment are very expensive, and keeping the training and keeping in contact with the department heads. So having an operations manager now, thank you that we got that last year, has really allowed us to be more interactive with the departments and reaching out and finding ways we can help them and cut some costs. The other issue or challenge is rising fuel costs and rising parts costs and delays in shipping, but that's all over the country. Next slide, please. So our goals and initiatives, as I talked about, the 5-year fleet replacement plan, also increasing the number of hybrid vehicle purchase. And Mr. Kelichek had mentioned that yesterday. We actually have 11 of the hybrid escapes now. So we added some more last year during the ordering period, and those are working out really well. And there's a picture of one up there. And also, as I stated, researching and planning for electric vehicle development. The current organizational chart is, as you see, we have one vacancy, is a mechanic, one, and we have no requests for personnel in fleet this year. The operating expense change is $213,000, and that is operating. The one below is for the personnel services. In the next slide, I'll go into that. So just a small increase for communications, and that was for a cell phone for the operations manager. We do have an increase in travel, and that is for EVT classes, which are the classes for specific certified training on fire apparatus. So that is, we're doing that in partnership with Fire and Chief Mack. We're sharing the costs in the training and the travel related, so that we have some technicians that are certified, which means that, you know, we can eliminate some of the contractor costs of people that were calling in for different repairs. So that's, one of our techs has taken 5 of the classes so far of the 9. So we're going to continue to diligently work on that. Dues and fees has increased. There's new requirements for our CDL and hazmat licenses, which the hazmat is the license for us to transport the fuel around the county. So those are necessary and required. Also, there's an impact fee that we do have to pay as a government for each vehicle, and it goes to the state. I already spoke about the EVT classes. That's in 2 parts, the travel and the education, so that's that impact there. And we also do need to have some HVAC training for the air conditioning systems on the newer vehicles. So systems change with new models, and that is one training that we've identified that is needed for our fleet technicians. And the biggest increase you see is the increase in parts and supplies costs and shipping. We have 524 vehicles in the fleet and 264 pieces of equipment. We are looking at, as I said, the fleet replacement plan, which should lower that over time. But right now, we are seeing an increase in those costs. Electricity, just increase in utilities. Most of the electricity costs come out of building maintenance, but there are some of the buildings that come out of the individual departments, and this is one of them. Fuel costs, there's small increase there, and small equipment. The mechanics and technicians have to provide their own tools as a requirement of their employment. That's typical for mechanics. And so when they break, we have to replace those. So that is what that cost is for there. And just a small increase in uniforms and boots to make sure we have the proper protective equipment for our employees. So as I stated, we are grateful for what we have and not asking for any personnel requests at this time for fleet services. So that is all I have on fleet services.
So I have one question, then I'll yield to the commissioners. Executive Director Sanders, in reference to the 5-year fleet replacement plan, any guesstimate of time in terms of execution and implementation date?
The agreements are with purchasing and legal to look over and make sure that all of our I's are dotted and T's are crossed, but you should see that coming in a month or so.
Okay.
Finance has already reviewed that.
Okay, very good. Commissioner Washington.
Do we have an estimated savings with replacing our fleet every 5 years?
Yes, and when I bring it before you, I'm going to have the exact numbers, but I believe it was in excess of $250,000 a year.
A year?
Yes, yes.
Oh, wow.
So that would offset that parts and supplies cost, but I don't want to give you, I know it's above that number, so I'll give you an exact number when we bring it before you.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And you said that the training for the joint mechanic, that's a shared cost? So do you know if fire is asking for an additional amount to cover that also?
I'm not sure if they ask for additional or if they have, I think they have a larger training line item than we do. But for this, we have a small training budget, so it was an increase for us. But this year, we did half and half.
Do you know an approximate amount that it's going to save the county to have somebody in-house that is trained to do?
Not an exact amount, but when we have fire truck repairs, they start at $3,000, $5,000, $8,000. I mean, they're not a $300 repair, so it's thousands.
Right, I know.
Yes.
And then we have to I saw a fire truck being towed away a couple of weeks ago, so I'm sure that was super expensive also. That's all I have right now.
Commissioner Williams?
So you talked about the fleet rotation replacement plan. Can you explain exactly how that works?
So,
And why that's an advantage to what we're doing now?
So the advantage is that working with a company that specializes in vehicle acquisitions and that type of thing, they know the appropriate time where we should roll over a vehicle and get a new one and sell the old one, where we can actually gain the most equity and get the most money back. That's one of the advantages. The other advantage is that, each year you see the departments coming here and they're all asking for vehicles, and they're all necessary. No one comes here to ask for something that's not necessary, and you have to decide and prioritize. This will allow us to look at the year, the mileage, the condition, and just do it automatically. So you won't have to, that won't be a concern on that part. So it will save money, it will be more efficient. It will also, when we list items on Gov Deals, we get dollars, a couple $100 for vehicles. By the time that we surplus them, they're pretty much have no use whatsoever. So we're not even getting enough money back to make it worth it to post it on there most of the time. The administrative cost for the employees even doing that. So a company would be able to do that and facilitate that. And that just saving costs, saving time, and also allowing us to have a fleet that's safe. We have vehicles in our fleet that still do not have the current safety standards. They still do not have, the side sensors. There's a lot of things. And when I'll bring a full presentation to you, and I'm going to give you the exact number of vehicles. But we have employees drive around in vehicles that don't have the current safety standards that you would want them to have.
So I do want to add, because that was a very good question coming from Commissioner Williams about how the 5-year replacement plan worked. So as you all know, that Rockdale County is one of the 11 counties that make up the Atlanta Regional Commission. There are 11 counties that represent that commission, and Rockdale is one of them. 7 of the 11 are already using a 5-year replacement plan. 1 of the 11 is using a 3-year replacement plan because of the size of that particular county. So this is going to save in terms of, number one, as you stated, the efficiency, the wear and tear, but above all things, the safety. When we think about the safety of our employees as well as the general public, this is going to take the guesswork out of what we've been sitting here every year going through with wear and tear based upon mileage and year. And then the embarrassing part is 2 things. Commissioner Washington just mentioned she saw a fire truck on a tow truck being towed. That's embarrassing. The other part of it is Executive Director Sanders just talked about, we have vehicles inside of our fleet that doesn't have the up-to-date, latest, greatest sensors in terms of technology, airbags, navigation, and all of those things that we need to keep a track with our vehicles and make sure that we are keeping up with all of the safety equipment and how to be able to track these vehicles and determine the wear and tear. So this 5-year replacement plan, from an efficiency standpoint, is really going to put us in the game as many of our metro partners throughout ARC.
One of the other things I forgot to mention is, as part of this, we would sit down with each department and go through their vehicle list with a vendor and say, okay, this function has a pickup truck. Is that really necessary? Can we get them in a hybrid, a smaller? So we're really going to look at each function and make sure they have the appropriate vehicle.
Very good.
I think that sounds really good.
Any other on the fleet presentation portion of Director Sanders?
No.
Okay, okay. All right, Director Sanders, are you going to transition to the other part?
Yes.
Okay.
Fire's
All right, very
making me
good.
nervous.
Okay.
Okay. Good morning again.
Good morning.
This is the facilities and maintenance presentation. And again, facilities is a support service, and we provide functional, efficient, welcoming, and aesthetically pleasing equipment and facilities. So some of the successes over the past year, we have implemented more. Each year we have funding in our budget to look at ADA projects, and we did one at the Board of Commissioners. We're doing one at Black Shoals, and also the auditorium, some upgrades. We completed the animal shelter expansion, which was a huge plus for the county and almost doubling the size of that kennel. Also renovated the clerk of court offices on the first floor and the third floor. We completed some renovations at South Rockdale Park. We installed bullet-resistant windows and ballistic shields at the courthouse. If you go in, you can see them right when you enter. So also they are at Magistrate Court as well. We completed security fencing at Old Covington. Before we had fencing, you could just walk onto the property. So that's a big security with our fuel being in all the vehicles that are out there for service stored out there. We also installed the new directional signage that you see outside the administration building and the courthouse, and has the picture with the map and the different departments. And that signage, we can change it in and out when things change, or elected officials change. Those change in and out. So we don't have to replace the sign each time like we did before.
Makes so much sense.
So where is that sign?
It's right down where, if you're coming in the administration building, right there on the wall. There was an old sign there, we replaced it with a brand new one. If you're walking in, looking at the door, it's right on the building.
Oh,
Had
And
a bit of
there's-
snake, it'll bit you.
Yeah.
well, I guess I better
and
pay attention.
Right.
And there's one at the courthouse
courthouse.
outside. There's one in the rotunda.
Yeah.
So that people were saying they couldn't find the office they were going to. So we're trying to help the citizens find where they need to go. The next was installing lights at the costly event center parking lot. It has made a huge improvement. If you have been out there for a function that has gone into the night, you can see in the parking lot now. We also added a break room at Fleet and Maintenance, and we completed some renovations for stormwater. I just wanted to add on every project on there except for the ADA projects, which I said we have some funding in our general fund budget each year. All of the other projects were either SPLOST or HOST. So most of the facility projects that we undertake are SPLOST funding, HOST, and we have a small amount in general fund for things that have to be done throughout the year. Opportunities, the judicial administrative complex, and y'all approved the task force, the consultant for the task force yesterday, so that is going well. They should kick that off on this Thursday. The next is working with Executive Director Lewis on the 5-year capital improvement plan. Since we started that, that's a huge benefit to us because we can sit with finance and prioritize the facility items and really look at a full list to develop a plan to move forward. Other opportunities are the upcoming SPLOST. So, we thank the citizens for approving the SPLOST. The SPLOST has a huge impact, and I'll be bringing more information over the months to show the citizens what we are doing with the SPLOST funding. So it has a huge impact to the county. Most of the projects that they've seen, such as Johnson Park, the animal control expansion, the fire stations, that all comes from SPLOST funding. So very impactful and very big opportunity for us moving forward.
Very briefly, Executive Director Sanders, would you just speak to the restrictions related to SPLOST and the fact that we can only use it for certain items and how that works just for the general public?
So the SPLOST is, when it's voted upon, is the categories such as roads, bridges, and sidewalks is one category. The funding has to be designated for that category. So we have that, recreation, sheriff, 911 and fire, and the funds have to be used in those categories. Once the SPLOST, so this subcommittee or this oversight committee that is currently working on the 2017 SPLOST will end at the beginning of next year, and we will start an entirely new oversight committee moving forward for the 2023. Once that committee is formed, they are given the project categories, they form subcommittees in those categories, and then the staff will present potential projects to the group, and they will go through those projects with the staff answers questions, and the citizens will really determine the list, the full list, the detailed list. So that is and it's restricted in the fact that we can't use it for maintenance, so we can't pay for, just simple repairs on an HVAC unit. It's got to be an upgrade, an expansion. It's got to be capital, a long-term type of project. Does that?
That hits the nail on the head. I think it's important. Number one, we all know how important SPLOST is to Rockdale County as a whole, and all of those particular categories that we use SPLOST for that you just pointed out. But I think it's also important, Commissioners, that citizens know and understand that we cannot use SPLOST for any other reasons than it has been designated for: public safety, Parks and Recreation, transportation, and those areas that have already been decided upon, and that is the work of the SPLOST committee. So I just thought it'd be very important to kind of reiterate that. There's some that have thought that we could just use SPLOST as we see fit, but we cannot do that. There has to be designated categories, and we have those in place that we can, and it's a major benefit to the county. Absolutely.
Challenges are just departments needing more space. So whether we look at the administrative and judicial complex, or most of the departments need more space. So as they're asking to add positions, my first thought is, where are we going to put the people? So space and planning for future additions are not just future. I mean, we're already out of space. We're subdividing offices. We have people in offices that weren't there, and we're creating spaces for people. Capital planning, and we're working and making that better, but just having an actual dedicated annual allotment that would just be there would be beneficial, so that we can plan in advance the projects. And then, just as with everyone else, we do, my staff, everyone's staff does a great job with what they have, but time management and just, shifting resources are always a challenge. So coming up from the strategic plan, our goals and initiatives for next year will be, again, to choose some projects to complete for the federal ADA upgrades and begin planning and estimating. Also, construction of Fire Station 10, completing the renovations and infrastructure to move 911 into the new facility that was purchased, which is exciting. And also assisting technology services with the data center and facility for that. We will continue planning for a judicial and administration complex. Under quality of life, we are working on the concept plan now with a consultant through GDOT on the Rockdale River Trail Connector, which will run from the monastery to Johnson Park. So we did receive funding through ARC, recommending it through the, GDOT for $300,000, and that will start the engineering study. So that is underway. We also are working on the South River Water Trail, the kayak launch and takeout that's currently in the bidding process, so that's an exciting one. That's been several years in fruition here, so pretty exciting project. And also, we're working, we had our first planning meeting with Director Redmond to start on looking at the South Side Annex for senior services. We know it's needed. That was in the SPLOST since the beginning. It's in the strategic plan as far as providing some type of facility on the South Side to especially get meals out of, and also some type of senior activity. And we also are working on the fire training facility, phase 1 of that, with the current SPLOST. And we're looking, planning for a stepping up location wherever that might be. So working with the commissioner on that initiative. So that's also all really exciting initiatives for 2023.
So could you tell us about some of the ADA requirements and the involvement of the federal government, if any, in what the deficiencies that we currently have?
So we did have the Department of Justice come out and meet with us, and at the time it was Judge Irwin, and I believe it was 2018. I'm doing this off memory, so it might have been 2017. And we were issued a letter on the number of ADA violations in the courthouse. So at that time, after that, we had a consultant come in and go through every facility in the complex and detail the improvements needed. So as we go and we look at renovations, we take from that list, and we're doing something each year. So like we've lowered the sinks, lowered the soap dispensers of the courthouse, things like that, or the hand dryers, I believe we did as well, so that we can show some progress each year, and when they do come back to look again. But it's an old building, so all of the buildings down here, there's ADA issues in all of them, so we do look at each project, and anytime we're looking at renovating or doing a project, we are making the necessary upgrades as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. This is our organizational chart, and again, on the facilities and maintenance, we have 2 technicians that are vacant, an equipment operator 1 at the recycling center, and also a recycling attendant there that are vacant. We did get some leads at the job fair, so that was exciting. We filled 1 position for sure from there. So we are not requesting any additional personnel for facilities and maintenance for 2023. The change in facilities is $92,000 on the operational side. And that boils down to a few areas in repairs, supplies, and capital projects and special projects. That is $14,000. And a little bit more training. We do have it's called Vector Solutions. It's a training program that's specific to maintenance. So we have the local GovU, which is great, but as far as specific maintenance training, this training focuses in, and they can take classes on minor plumbing repairs, minor HVAC at their own pace. So we are developing a training plan for each person, and also last year we implemented a promotional progression for our technicians, and that is dependent on how much training they take, how many years they've been here, how many classes they pass, and then they can move to the next level. So this is a really good incentive for them as well. Rather than staying at the same level forever, they can work towards something and gain more knowledge and benefit the county as well. The second and the biggest increase is on cleaning services and repair and maintenance and building maintenance. And that is mainly because we've had several contracts which have already come before you, several that will be coming, the elevators, the fire backflow, the vendors are all having a small increase in price. So we're taking care of 32 facilities, and we really whittled down some other areas to make it a smaller increase there. On recycling, a small increase on repair and maintenance, and then nothing on disposal and grinding at the recycling center. And these just go into a little more detail. I did want to point out that the pictures that you see, so when emergencies happen, such as this one, which the roof during a pretty bad storm had damage at Johnson Park. Those are the type of costs, they're under the $25,000 deductible, so those are the kind of things that we have to take care of out of our budget. So one reason for some of the increase in cost. And again, no personnel requests. And that is all I have.
So, Executive Director Sanders, I want to go back just for a second to the conversation centered around the administrative building space allocation. You touched on that a little bit, but I want to talk about the integrity of the admin building, and we did a study. We've got steel reinforcement beams that are running from the first floor all the way up to the third floor of that building. Can you speak to that and where we stand moving forward with that building? Most our citizens only come to the first floor for the most part. They don't know. Some of them are not aware that we have steel reinforcement beams all throughout the building trying to maintain the integrity of the building. Will you talk to us about what your team has discovered?
So you can see it right when you go in on the planning on the first floor. There are beams there, but they are throughout the the interior offices. They're also on the second floor. And basically, they're reinforcing the structure, and this isn't something that we caused. They actually did a study, and it was just the building when it was converted over from the old church when it was renovated, it wasn't reinforced enough, because we did already several years ago under a different director, there was some reinforcement done to the office that in finance. So but when we did some renovations in the building, we found that the door frames weren't, so we actually had someone come out and look further at it, and we have a full report on that. The beams are in there to reinforce it for the time being, but we do need to find a permanent solution. We can't stay in there long-term as it is. The estimate done last year was about $2 million and that's not fully designed. We need to get someone to design the reinforcements. It will need the duct system, all of that will have to be torn out and reconfigured to make the necessary repairs. The repairs are in between the floors, so, and we have some pictures of that as well if you'd like to see them, but there is a report and a recommendation already been done by a structural engineer for the facility.
Thank you so much. One other question I'll yield to the commissioners. Give me again the number of facilities that we are responsible for across the county.
Over 32, and that's not including all of the water facilities, because they take care of most of their own except for Tatum Road and Quigg. They take care of all their pump houses and all the different smaller facilities they have all around the county.
Okay. Commissioner Washington, any questions for the director?
Just a couple. The South River Water Trail and the Rockdale River Trail connector, do we have a timeline on this? On those?
The Rockdale River, so that one is about 5 miles. So right now we're in the investigative phase, and they'll have to design it, and then we'll have to determine a funding source. So we only have a small amount in SPLOST for that, and we're hoping to obtain grant funding and also possibly other private funding for that.
Okay.
And then the Rockdale River Trail, that one is actually in the bid process, so that one will be much sooner and hopefully be complete by the end of next year. I'm going to be safe.
And that's the one that we did get some funding, some grant funding
Yes,
for?
so that one is actually a grant, partially grant and partially SPLOST.
Right.
So that one is, and also we had donated land from the South Watershed Alliance. So that one is a joint project and supported by multiple entities. So that one's going to be, it's a little more detailed because we have to actually put in a parking lot at the takeout. It will start at Lorraine. That will be where you put your kayak in, but there will be a takeout at the other property on Oglesby Bridge. And that one, we have to make sure the parking lot is designed for the traffic flow. Getting on Oglesby Bridge right there is, so that one's taking a little longer. But yes, it's in the bid process, hopefully by the end of hopefully sooner, but I don't want to get anybody's hopes up too quick.
Thank you.
Okay.
Commissioner Williams?
Okay, I need to think for a minute. There's a big echo
Right, that's what I asked.
when Commissioner Washington is speaking. and I'm having trouble understanding what she's saying, so I'm listening really hard. Yeah, I did have a question. About the admin building. So with the Administrative and Government Complex Task Force, we're in the process now of, we approved for them to go ahead and hire Jericho, I think it was, to explain to us what Jericho will be doing and how that relates to the administrative building and the complex, or is that all one thing?
So Jericho will be working with the task force, the 9-member task force, and they actually approved the contract yesterday, and I had them ready, and they're going to kick off with the task force tomorrow at 5 o'clock in Judge Munford's courtroom. So they're ready to go, and they gave an approximate time frame of 10 weeks. So what they will do, they are not designing the facility. What they will do is work with the task force, look at the 3 studies that we have. We have one from Heery in 2017. We have another on the administration facility, and then we have a security and needs assessment for just the courthouse. They're going to take those 3 studies, assess them. They're going to speak with the elected officials again, update their needs. And then they will work with the task force and come up with 3 different options for looking at that. But it does relate to the administration facility because the departments in the administration facility will be planned for in that new complex. So yes, it does. So if they recommend moving them into a new building, and that is what the board does, then the repairs at the administration facility would not need to be done. What we'll need to do is check the structure, periodically to make sure that it's not further deteriorating. We don't want that type of thing. But yes, and so they will get 3 options. They will work with the consultant, give their thoughts, and also included in that, and this is an architect, so this is what they do. They will look at all of the needs and we'll have an estimate for construction. And we'll also have concept drawings. So we'll have concept and estimate, and after that point, if you proceed, that's when you actually get into the design, which takes about a year and is about 3 to 4% of the overall project. So that is why we don't have a full design, because you would really have had to commit $3 million approximately if it was $100 million, just doing the basic math. So this is giving us a concept, an idea for the public, and a way for you to proceed. And the task force is very engaged. And Jericho will work with them and make sure they get all their concerns. They already toured this complex, and by the 3rd building, this is, we know the need. They came in this building, they saw the poles, they went over to the small buildings with the foundation cracks, those type of, and the smell in the basement that's been spoken of. So they saw that, so they're ready to get to work. And then also, this consultant has worked on other courthouses, so he can recommend, tell them about things that they've seen in other places, and also if they want to go visit them, they can also do that and arrange that. So that is the process, and we'll come back to you, the task force, with their recommendations.
So their work will take about 10 weeks, you said?
Approximately, yes. That's their timeline, just depending on how fast the task force wants to move and that type of thing. But they're going to meet with them Thursday and go through the process.
So before the end of the year, we should have at least some concept drawings and suggestions and ideas.
Yes, you will have that.
Great.
Very good. Anything else, Commissioner Washington, for Executive Director Sanders?
No,
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for everything.
Thank you, Director. Director Lewis, who's up next?
Thank you, Board. Next, we'll have the Sheriff Office, which is number 19 in your packets. Sheriff Levitt will come forward to present the Sheriff budget for FY23.
All right, very good, very good. Good morning, Sheriff.
Good morning. Not better.
To Mr. Chairman, to the Board of Commissioners, let me first apologize for being off schedule. They pulled me out of one meeting. I had 2 meetings going on at the same time. one at RCA, and then one at the office, which is our comp stat meeting, which to me is very important. So myself and the command staff jumped out of that meeting to rush here. So Madam Chief, I apologize for making you slightly delay on this. So with that being said, I'm going to try to push through this kind of fast, so this one might be a little jumbled up a little bit. So my apologies to you all. It's only good to make that right, to apologize. All right, so we'll get started. If we can go through, the presentation agenda is there. The vision and mission and values is there for anyone to see and to go through it. For the sake of time, our opportunities and challenges are there for you to read for the sake of time. However, I would like to highlight a few individuals really quick, because as most of you know, around the entire state of Georgia and actually around the nation, if you've been paying attention, that all law enforcement agencies are suffering with vacancies and fulfilling vacancies. I won't call this particular agency's name, but it's right here in Georgia, not too far from us. They have, I believe, I was told, like 8 zones, and they only had 3 officers working, and that was 2 of them was including supervisors. And it's in one of the cities that have an extreme crime issue. And so I consider Rockdale County blessed and fortunate that we're not sitting in that position. Even though at one point we had, I think, somewhere around 53 positions. The last update that I had, which was about 3 weeks ago, I think we had like 7 or 8 openings on the street, and maybe a little over 23 positions in the jail. Now, don't hold me to those numbers, but it's somewhere around in there, and that's good compared to other agencies. Also, let me highlight, keep in mind that I think about 13 to 14 of those positions are school crossing guards. And so, I always need to make sure that we know that those show as vacancies for us. One of the things I want to highlight, I wanted to thank my staff for working really hard, because we couldn't have done this without working hard with Director Holmes and her team, and Director Lewis and his team when we launched the bonuses for the first, I think we said the first 30-something people that get processed through and hired on with us would get much larger bonus. And so in order to do that, we had to make sure that our monies was intact and that we could actually move forward through it. And so we worked hard with Director Lewis and Director Holmes, 2 divisions, in order to do that. So I want to say thank you for working with my team and getting that done, because that's when those decreases happen. All right.
Sheriff, did it help? Were you able to get you a few people using that
We
bonus?
was able to get a lot of people, and that particular bonus only lasted for so long. Actually, it was the first, however many that we listed that went through the process and actually hired on. And once we got to that number, it went back to the original, I think, $2,000 or $3,000 bonus, I believe is what we had. So yes, it was a huge help, and we're sitting pretty good when it comes to our numbers and our people on the street.
So that's really good news, because I think that's the first time we've heard that in quite a few years.
Yes.
So.
Next slide is our FY23 goals and initiatives. I'll let you all take a look at that when you have an opportunity, again, for the sake of time. Next slide is the current organizational chart. I go to a lot of conferences. Next slide is the proposed organizational chart. I believe this is one of the things in our offices that change a lot. You probably can contest to that, Mr. Chairman, how sometimes we have to make modifications and amendments within our organizational chart for the best practices and or for the needs of the agency. And so this is one of the items, if you will, or resources, if you will, within our agency that changes a lot. I think Director Holmes get a lot of calls from us when we are changing positions or reclassifying positions and so forth and so on. All right, next slide is the budget summary.
Sheriff, if we could go back to that other slide, because you just pointed out something that I think really lend itself to some of the concerns we heard this week. A lot of citizens, a lot of the regular citizens don't really understand the paramilitary makeup of a sheriff's organization, captains, chiefs, and majors. One of the things that we heard during our millage rate hearings this week from just a few of the citizens was rattling off the fact that there's multiple captains and so many chiefs and all of that. And a lot of folks just don't understand the organizational chart makeup. Can you just talk a little bit about that? We understand how you have to restructure, as you stated, reclass, but for the general public looking from the outside looking in, a lot of times they think that you've got a gazillion captains and majors and chiefs, and they don't understand. Speak to that if you would.
Yes, sir. So again, as I stated earlier, this chart changes a lot based upon best practices and the needs of the agency. And in fact, if you look at other agencies our size, we actually don't have enough ranking members, if you will, to carry on some of the shifts. Over the years, actually under the former sheriff, Jeff Wigginton, he proposed for many years when there was some conversation to have a south channel for radio and north channel for radio, but you had to have supervisors on each side of those counties, and the goal was to have a sergeant on the north side and a sergeant on the south side, a corporal on the north side and a corporal on the south side. This current makeup is not like that. We have 8 zones. We have a lieutenant, a sergeant, and a corporal that's running the whole entire shift, and you're talking anywhere between 12 to 15 people a shift. But if you break it up, you don't have enough supervisors, but you have that one lieutenant who is controlling all of those individuals, and somehow we have to separate the sergeant if you're going to have a sergeant running this shift, then you have a corporal that may be assigned to the north side, but you don't have a corporal on the south side. So anyway, that's on the street side. But then if you transfer over to the jail, you have now 4 shifts, and you have one sergeant, one lieutenant, one sergeant, and one corporal on each shift. And it's the same amount of people. Actually, it's more people on each shift. I think it's about 20-something people on each shift. The propose in the future, and you probably hear some today, we're going to ask for additional supervisors because we want to make sure that we have at least 2 sergeants. The goal is to have 2 sergeants on each shift and 2 corporals on each shift, so you're talking 4 shifts. Currently, it's only 1 of each on each shift. But the organizational chart starts with the sheriff, the chief deputy, and then you have 2 majors. The major is in charge of, which is the chief jailer. He's in charge of the jail bureau, and then you have a major that's in charge of the law enforcement bureau. And so you got to have, again, that's best practices and the needs of the agency. And if you go look at other agencies, they have more than we have. And then fall under them are captains in those divisions, but they're in. A lot of them are in separate divisions, such as courts or in support services, uniform patrol. In the jail, you have 2 captains. You have a captain that's running the operations and one that's running personnel. So it's not overpowering with commanders. So hopefully that gave some clarity on.
Well, I do appreciate you breaking it down like that, because sometimes it's so difficult for people to understand and have a full gist of how this makeup of the sheriff's office is. And you're absolutely correct. Different police agencies have different organizational charts based upon the need, the number of people. The running theme, so you will know, Sheriff, as they was mentioning the last few days, was there's tons of captains and people don't understand. I think this may be an advantage for you by me sharing with you. There may be something you and your PR team may want to zoom in on to address, to basically do more than even what you just did this morning, to help people outside understand the true makeup of the sheriff's office, the number of supervisors, why do you have a major here, major there, the number of captains, and something a little bit more in depth, because we were listening from last week until yesterday, and that same theme kept running. Of course, we didn't answer on your behalf, and I think it may benefit you to just take a moment and share that with the
Right. As a matter of fact, I haven't, if any, there may have been, including the major, maybe one additional captain added since I've taken over as sheriff. So it's not really been any additional captains than if you go back and look at from the last administration.
Yes, sir.
But of course, they can always reach out to our office and ask those questions, and we'd be more than happy to answer it or explain that to them. And we also reclassified a position and made it a chief of staff position.
Sheriff, can I ask one question? Could you explain, though, how adding the positions that you've asked for will help the citizens on the street with safety, public safety in general?
So, yes, because when you are working with an agency, if you will, you have the operating side and you have the personnel side. And oftentimes, you got to separate the two and have one commander focusing on the operating side, and I'm summing it up that way, easier for people to understand, hopefully. And then you have one commander working on the personnel side. And if they are overseen by a major, that major would then review everything and make decisions from there. Although the major allows those commanders to make decisions, but ultimately he or she is responsible for the major decisions of that bureau, if you will. And sometimes having a captain can be sent to certain areas where a higher commander is needed, where that major cannot attend. Or it's somewhere where a lieutenant you shouldn't send a lieutenant or a sergeant or a corporal. And so hopefully they understand that breakdown of it.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So could you talk about the mental health pod, mental health unit in the jail? Give us an update on the renovation of that, and then the staffing of that, and what that means to our county, and why that was important to do.
Okay. If I can do that, Dr. Williams, down in the presentation, because
okay.
In one of my requests is additional personnel for mental health.
Right, I saw that on
Okay.
this.
And then I'm going to have Major Miller. He's more up to date on it than I am, because I have not been briefed. As a matter of fact, I think I have a meeting with him tomorrow. And so I'm going to let him give you that briefing on that. Moving forward, as you know, we're operating under $27 million, $210,997, and we're proposing to ask for $30,968 and $829. There is about a $3 million change. You can see it, the exact numbers there, $3 million change. The next page will explain why. As most of you know, on the first line item there, most of you know that the fuel cost has gone up tremendously. And so, as you know, we're a 24-hour agency. We run patrol cars 24 hours a day. We transport basically 24 hours a day. And so the fuel cost is going to, we know that it's going to go up. And so we're asking for an additional $27,240, which is only a $20 difference. Also, the next line item is just showing you that
$20,000 difference, Sheriff. You said
what did I say?
$20.
Huh?
You said $20.
Oh, 20,000.
You meant 20,000.
I'm trying to move fast and I'm getting ahead of myself. 20,000.
We wish it was $20.
We need people to be
Thank you for
clear
correcting me.
between 20 and 20,000.
Right. Let me remind the Sheriff, this is being live streamed, so people are watching and listening as you speak. So
And taking notes.
And taking notes. I thought I'd clear that up.
You know what? We are entitled to errors every
Yes,
now and
we
again.
are.
And I understand that some of us is not entitled to those errors, but, you know, I'm human. The Lord made me, not them. So,
Amen.
anyway, $20,000, my error. The next line item is not a request. It's just showing, it's just a transfer where we transfer $20,000 due to due to cost of our supplies, if you will, such as COVID supplies and so forth and so on. That we just put it in there for people to see. The next line item we're asking, as you know, is an ongoing ASON contract that we have. ASON is our cameras, our body cameras that we have out on our patrol side and in our some in our jail side. That is a $32,855 contract. Some additional contracts we're asking funds for $16,000, for $2,000, and $13,750 and $15,000. I do apologize that I don't have what those PO item numbers are tagged to, but I can tell you they are additional. They are not additional, but they are current contracts that we have that we are asking for those additional dollar amounts for. The current budget for this year with those contracts is $632,155. We're asking for $711,760, which is a difference of $79,605. All right, the next line item is, as most of you know, we have to provide federally and legally, we have to provide medical care to our inmates. Every year, we've talked about this, that there's always an additional 3% increase. Over the years, even prior to me, there's always been an increase in our medical contract, at least 3%. This year, it is anticipated that additional 3%. We're currently working on a $2,679,411, and we're asking for $2,880,677, which is a difference of $201,266. That total amount of that particular budget for the operational request is $320,871. All right, the next line item is an increase in expenses in terms of training. We're currently working on the $5,000. We're asking for an additional $5,000, which makes it $10,000 for training. As Dr. Williams has alluded to, we are working on our mental health component. We're working on ACA accreditation for our jail. And in fact, we should be signing on soon with someone to assist us in getting our accreditation done. With that said, it's going to require traveling for a few members to go to receive our reaccreditation. And I think this year it was in New Orleans. It was in New Orleans about a week ago.
It's coming up, but New Orleans has the ACA conference. But two of my people are going to abroad for training, but the ACA certification is next month.
Right. That's just for the certification. However, the recert was, I think, last week, because Newton County, I believe, was Sheriff Brown was there last week getting a recert, and I believe that one was in New Orleans. So anyway, that is the purpose of the increase in that amount. Also with that, we're hoping to do some leadership training in those areas as well. Next line item, as most of you know, COVID is up and down, and we're asking for an increase. We're asking for an increase of $20,000. As you know, there was paid out $74,428 for the various resources and items for COVID. And, you know, unfortunately, when we have inmates, when we have deputies that are out here having contact with the general public. Now we have this new disease, which is the monkeypox, which is a huge concern of mine because of having a jail with individuals in there and individuals coming in with all types of health conditions and medical conditions. And so we're asking for an increase so we can treat those and be prepared to treat those illnesses, if you will. Moving to the next line item. Again, as most of you know, food costs have gone up tremendously. Every single year we go up on food costs. I don't think I've ever seen in my years in law enforcement or years in life that food has gone up as high as it is now. And so it's going to go up even more. And we're asking for $520,000. We're currently working on a $420,597, and we're asking for $520,000 that we believe that will cover the cost for this new increase. That is a $99,403 difference. The total for this portion of our request is $198,831.
And Sheriff, thank you for all of that. Before you go to that next slide, I want to go back to something you made mention to. We haven't talked about it a lot here in Rockdale, but you mentioned it, and it's happening all across the metro, and that's the new pandemic of this monkeypox. And certainly jails across the nation had to deal with COVID in a crazy kind of way. I was watching the news just this morning, and of course monkeypox is making its way across metro Atlanta. Have you and your staff had any pre-conversations with Rockdale Piedmont as to whether or not they can address those patients that may be possibly infected with monkeypox? And I ask that question because a part of the news report I heard this morning, a couple of folks got turned away from urgent care facilities and from a couple of hospitals across the metro area. Have you had a just-in-case kind of conversation with any of the folks down at Piedmont in the event that you come across monkeypox? Because the concern is, if it gets into the jail, you could have a major situation on your hand, and I'm just asking what has been done to get ahead of that.
So, as you know, we have a medical vendor in our jail. The director, I call him the director of our medical staff, is awesome. He's a great guy. In fact, he used to work for Piedmont Rockdale Hospital as well. And he's in constant contact with the various hospitals and other vendors. He's always ready and prepared to treat our inmates for COVID and also this additional monkeypox. I'm not sure of, I would be willing to bet that he has had a conversation with the local hospital, but I do know that we're prepared based upon his aggressiveness. Major Johnson, Major Miller, you have any additional update on that? Okay, great. So I know that Chief Holmes and I have had conversations about this and prepared. I feel that Rockdale Sheriff's Office is always ahead of the game when it comes to something that we learn about. That's how we got ahead of our COVID when it first came out. And so I'm sure, based upon they know what my vision is and mission is for that agency when it comes to stuff like that, that they're on top of it.
Well, sir, I certainly appreciate hearing that. That's one that we would love to hear once you and the major meet with your medical director and let us know that certainly Rockdale Piedmont is ready, truly ready to receive. The hopes is that you don't have that issue.
Right.
but you and I, as you just talked about, being proactive, but I would love to have a definitive answer in terms of, are they ready down the street in the event you have a breakout?
I've been talking with, and while we're on this subject, I've been talking with some of the heads of NAFCARE actually last week and last month, and we are working on preparing to do a Q&A town hall meeting about inmate care. What type of inmate care and what could be your concerns, shall your loved ones, or if you have loved ones incarcerated in jails, I'm not sure if they're going to be able to speak on prison. They probably can if they are have contracts with some of the prisons. But my particular vendor, I'm offering that. I'm going to offer that town hall meeting there, and with if they have questions and concerns about COVID and monkeypox, then they'll be able to ask those questions. And as you may or may not know, we've had an increase of 30% in our population in inmate. We still have somewhat of a minor classified COVID protocol in our jail in terms of receiving inmates, but we're slowly releasing that, which means that we will be taking more inmates in, and our population is going to go up, which is going to cause our medical expenses to go up, and it's going to cause our food expenses to go up as well. And that 30% increase was from June 2021 we saw up to June 2022. All right, the next line item, as most of you probably have seen or have not seen, we've changed our jail uniforms. They wear the same uniforms as our street deputies. The difference is going to be, it's going to have a rocker underneath there that says detention deputy for those that are not certified. And it seemed like it's going to be a slight increase at first, but in the long run, it's going to balance. And so with that being said, because every deputy doesn't necessarily get new uniforms, we salvage uniforms, we send them to cleaners, or if they fit them, we put them on. If they can't fit, then we send them and get new ones. So it will balance out. So currently we're working on the $48,018, and we're asking for $58,018, which is a $10,000 difference. Our support services, we're currently working on the $25,924 as we're asking for an increase due to enhancing our training. Our support service consists of everything that you can work on around the jail in terms of the maintenance around our jail, and also our training department falls under, our training coordinator falls under support services, and our property and evidence. Property and evidence falls under, crime scene. No, property and evidence. Property and evidence fall under our support service. So with that, there's going to be additional training in there as well, and so that's the purpose of that increase. If I didn't say, we're currently working on $25,924. We're asking for $45,924, which is a $20,000 difference. The total estimate budget for this area here is $549,702. Now this is where I'm going to call Major Miller up here shortly, but for the area that you're talking about, Dr. Williams, for our mental health component, and to prepare for our mental health component, we're asking for 4 sergeants, 4 jail sergeants, 4 jail corporals, and 12 detention deputies to monitor and to supervise our mental health component. With that is an additional $876,512. Also, as a side note, if you're wondering why we have school resource officers on here and it's showing 0, we wanted to make sure that while we had the opportunity to let the general public know that we added additional 2 SROs to our high schools, Heritage High School and Salem High School, at no cost to us. That amount is being funded by the Rockdale County Public Schools. So I give kudos to Dr. Oates and his cabinet and the Rockdale County Public Schools for funding those 2 additional officers. Again, as Rockdale County Public Schools is a part of our county. We're getting ahead of the curve, if you will, to make our kids safe and to make hopefully our parents feel a little better that there's extra eyes in the school from the outside to the inside.
Sheriff, that's a big deal. You're absolutely right. That's one of the hottest topics across the country is school safety, particularly as school has just started most recently. But here in the metro, folks parents need to be, and so does teachers and faculty and staff know that they're going to be safe inside of a school campus, on a school campus throughout the day, to know that they've picked up the tab on adding those additional SROs is a plus. That's a partnership between you and Rockdale County Public School System, and if you haven't already, I'd be sounding the alarm on that one, because that's a big, big deal. It put parents at ease to know that their children during the school day are safe inside of a school, and that you've done extra job to make sure that those school entrances and exits are safe, in addition to what the school board has done itself.
Well, thank you.
Can I ask a couple of questions about the mental health unit? You've indicated that you need 4 jail sergeants, 4 corporals, and 12 detention deputies. Is that one per shift for the jail sergeants and corporals?
Well, it runs shifts.
Right.
Shifts, yes.
So it's one per shift for those, and then you need, what, three personnel?
The detention deputies per shift.
For the
yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And
are there any guidelines that we're going to make sure that we're meeting whatever recommended federal guidelines are out there?
guidelines?
Are there any guidelines for how many mental health jail operators are needed? I just want to make sure that, because mental health needs are different, and so I want to make sure that we're providing those people the safety and everything that we can to make sure that this unit is.
So guidelines, I'm assuming you're talking about, I understand what you're talking about, but I understand that mental health ward is going to be ran by mental health professionals.
Right.
Sheriff's office deputies are only there for safety and security.
Oh.
So yes, there will be guidelines that the mental health vendor will have to follow to provide that particular care to those inmates that are in there for mental health, and the deputies are in there for the safety and security, which will follow our policy and procedures. Right. That is set by the sheriff's office.
Okay. I guess what I'm asking is we're having 6 people per shift, 6 sheriff's officers per shift. Is that what's recommended per any guidelines?
She's talking about the patient ratio per deputy. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I don't think it's about no guidelines, because we can't say how many
people.
So to answer your question, we didn't see any guidelines. There has not been any guidelines presented to us. But also, just so that people don't get a misunderstanding, you can have anywhere between 5 to 10 inmates in the mental health ward,
right,
or less,
yeah,
or more. So there's no guidelines right now, but if we get anywhere between maybe high 20s, then we might want to start adding additional staffing in there.
So, Sheriff, and I hear you with that. So let me ask this question. I think this might help bring a little bit of clarification. Our mental health ward itself, how many inmates can we hold in that mental health unit at full capacity?
Do you know that number? Okay, I'm going to turn this portion over to
yes, sir.
Major Miller.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning.
Washington,
Good morning.
So hopefully I can answer a lot of your questions. If you would, please leave the screen up. I've been in this business now, law enforcement business, for over 38 years. When I interviewed for this position, top of my mind and my thoughts was mental health. We all know, and most citizens would agree, there are a lot of people in jail who do not need to be there just because they have a mental health issue or a mental illness. Right. Yet hospitals have turned them away. Most mental health facilities have closed. So we bear that burden, and it's a burden we take on willingly. So my vision was to have a state-of-the-art, world-renowned mental health unit. That's where we start out when I got here, and that's the challenge I've tried to pursue. So to answer your first question, Dr. Williams, as far as the update, Michael Robinson met with my staff yesterday and brought the next to final set of plans over for the mental health unit. and everything looked exactly as we wanted it to be. We were stalled for a little while because we had to do something called jetting. We had to go through and survey the drainage systems in that old facility to make sure they were cleared out and so that water could run and could escape properly through the drains. That delayed us for a couple of months. It's been done now. We expect, and I was told yesterday, we expect now the RFP to possibly be compiled and drawn up and ready to be issued, hopefully by October or November. Okay, so that's why we're a little bit behind. We at first thought we would open by November. So as far as an update, that's where we are with the mental health facility as a whole. Chairman, to answer your question about how many it can hold, we initially drew it so that there are 9 cells per unit. Each cell can hold anywhere from 1 to 2 people depending on how severe the illness is with this particular person. We're going to have 4 different individual pods. 2 of them are for high risk. They have a certain term for it, people who are really, really mentally ill. They will be single cells, 1 for males, 1 for females. Okay. We have a much higher population of male inmates than we do females with mental illness. So those 2 are specifically for that group of people. We then have 2 dormitory settings for the lower level needs of mental health patients. Again, each one of those can hold up to 36 mental health patients.
How many?
36.
Wow.
Okay? And then we're also building out a unit for veterans with mental illness. We visited Tampa, Florida, and we saw the facility. They have a separate unit for just veterans. They take care of their own facilities. They draw art on their walls. It was wonderful to see it. We're going to put that in practice as well. Okay, so that's the staffing numbers. But there, if you've ever seen it, it's called the Octagon. It's the old jail. It's capable of holding much more. So our hope and goal is that if we need it, we can expand.
So, Major, when you put a complete number on all of what you just said to me,
yes, sir.
What would that number be when we think about mental health incarceration by itself?
Just by itself, that building, the number should be around 90 people when we open.
90?
90 inmates when we open.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. So, staffing, and Commissioner Washington, to your question, yes, that is exactly right. We run 4 shifts, 24/7. Our initial goal when we open is to have 1 sergeant per shift, 1 corporal per shift, and 3 deputies per shift. Now, that's just to fully 100% staff the mental health unit. We still have our other deputies who are working in the jail that can come over and assist anytime there's a crisis or some other incident of that nature. So, it won't just be those. It's a full facility. And again, it's 24/7. Depending on the needs, again, like the sheriff said, we may come back and ask for more, or hopefully we can make do with what we have starting out. Our jail now is full. We're up to about 375 on the average daily population. We were 250 this time last year, and a good portion of those people are mental health people that are lodged in the booking area and just kind of wherever we can fit them in. So once we open this facility, we imagine it's going to be fully successful, serving the needs of those particular special needs patients.
So if you have almost it sounds like over 100 now, then when this opens, it will be over the 90.
No, I'm sorry. No, we're full now, that jail population-wise, but we don't have 100 or so mental health patients right now.
Okay.
No. And we have very few females, I would say. Again, that pod will hold 9, but I don't even know if we have 9 patients with severe enough mental illness to go in there right now.
Okay.
Yes, okay.
That's good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So hopefully that answers most of your questions. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Major.
You good, Dr. Williams? Now, also, we should be launching, and it goes back to the numbers he just gave you, we're hoping that we can curve that because we're about to launch the same project that Conyers PD has launched with having a mental health person on board with the sheriff's office for the street side or uniform patrol side that will respond with a deputy, or when a deputy requests them to come out to evaluate and talk to that mental health person to prevent them from coming to jail. Some of these inmates that will be in the mental health that are already in jail probably have, a lot of them have a lot of misdemeanor charges that was put on them because there was nowhere for them to go. And there was repeated calls that either the sheriff's office or Conyers PD responded to, and they had no choice but to charge the individual. And so those are the individuals we hoping with this mental health ward that the professionals will treat, and we can work with the judicial system to get them out of jail and to keep those numbers down at the same time that we have this other component out here on the street that will be working, that mental health professional, which will be coming from Viewpoint Health, and they will be working with the deputies on the street to prevent those charges from being put on them to brought to the jail. So hopefully our numbers will not get up to where it's costing the county a lot.
Chief Freeman gave a report at our steering committee meeting a couple weeks ago about the impact of their embedded clinician. They actually have 2 now in the city of Conyers, and I can't remember the numbers now, but it was amazing how many issues were settled without ever coming to the jail. There were only a small percentage that ended up being booked in the jail.
Well, imagine that number with the city being the size that it is.
Right,
and
exactly.
the county jurisdiction that we patrol, the size it is, the number of mental health people we come in contact with. I just kicked that MOU back. Tamika, my executive assistant, is out this week on PTO, and I'm not sure, I think it's in the box ready to be reviewed. I can't remember by who. There was a couple of questions that I had on it, but once it goes through that last final process, we should be ready to launch our clinician out soon.
That's awesome.
Thank you. That's it. The next slide just breaks down what I went over as the reasonings as to why we're asking for those positions, and I think that's the last slide. Any additional questions?
I'm going to yield to the commissioners. Commissioner Washington, any additional questions for the sheriff?
I have no question.
Commissioner Williams?
No, thank you.
Sheriff, thank you so much.
Great
Thank you and
conversation.
your
Thank
team. Thank you so much. Director Lewis, who's up next?
Thank you, board. Thank you for the flexibility this morning. Up next, we have Fire and Rescue, where we have Chief Mary McDaniel to present the Fire and Rescue. That's number 21 in your guide.
Thank you so much. So glad the chief was able to make an adjustment. Certainly appreciate your patience. As the chief prepares to take the podium and the mic, we're going to take a quick 5-minute recess for the BOC, just a quick 5-minute recess so we can just take a personal break here, and then we'll come back and we'll hear Chief McDaniel and her team. So we'll take 5 minutes. We just received some very good news from Executive Director Lewis, and we are actually rocking and rolling on track. And right as I prepare to call Chief McDaniel up, I want to first take a moment and say, I love those purple shirts. Y'all just give her a round of applause for that beautiful purple. Absolutely. Go ahead and stand up. Yeah, give them another round of applause. I know there's a whole lot of us that like the color purple, Chief came, and he's sporting his purple, and usually Executive Director Sanders, about 4 times out of 1 week, she has on something purple, if it's nothing but her nails or toenails. But certainly, Chief Matt, y'all rocking in purple this morning.
Yes, we are, sir.
Okay.
Yes, we are.
Firing another color.
Hey, you know what?
All right.
Looking good, too, aren't you?
Yes, you are looking good. Absolutely.
Deion says when you look good, you play good. When you play good, they pay good.
That's right. And it's the pay good that we're working towards today.
All right.
So, ready to rock and roll. So at Rockdale County Fire Rescue, our motto is excellence beyond our standards, service beyond your expectations. And that is demonstrated daily through our mission of providing safe services that promotes economic sustainability and improves quality of life through professional development and community risk reduction. It's further supported by our vision as we strive to exceed those needs of the communities. So with that, we'll move forward. And we talk about organizational values. It's in the name of Rockdale: respect, openness, compassion, knowledge, diversity, accountability, leadership, and equality. You put those all together and it is Rockdale. We're open, we respect everyone, we appreciate everyone's service, what they can bring to the table, and we're always continuing to learn, as we talked about in our vision. So we talk about opportunities and challenges, our successes. Our fire prevention staff, I've been here coming up on 5 years, and we had 2 persons. That was a person that served as a fire marshal with 2 fire and prevention officers that served as investigators as well. So now we have a staff of 7, and included in that, we only had 1 fire safety educator. So now we've increased that to 7 persons. We have, 4 or 5 fire inspectors, 2 that have fire investigation services. We have 1 plan reviewer, and we have 2 fire safety educators. The importance of that is getting out, making sure with all the new construction going on that all safety protocols are followed. As far as the fire safety educators, getting out, particularly to our senior citizens, making sure their homes are safe. They have the fire detectors and fire extinguishers and whatever services that we can provide, to include providing CPR classes to the communities and fire extinguisher classes and things such as that. Purchase of a Quint. This is exciting news. I wish we had included a picture in there. And the big thing with the Quint is that it serves 2 roles, that of an engine and that of a ladder. And this is such a big opportunity because when we talk about, as we're here talking about money, this is the budget, a single engine can cost upward of $500,000, upward. A truck, and when we talk about engines carry the water, trucks carry the ladders and equipment. A truck can cost upwards of $700,000, so we need 2 of those. Well, we got a Quint that serves both roles that was a little over $700,000. So that is huge. And it also increases our capability from a truck perspective, that we have 2 ladders, one that we can operate on the south side, one on the north side. Enhancing our special operation teams. One of the biggest things that we've done, of course, we have our swift water, and thank God thus far we haven't had any real emergencies this year, but last year we did have the drowning. But being able to get out and respond and partner up with the surrounding companies to provide that swift water. So we have quite a bit of water out here in Rockdale County, and people enjoy doing those water activities. But most recently, as last year, we started our mobile medic response team. And as you know, we have our trails, and we have all special events going on in the county. And the engine can't always get down there to Miss Mary when she has an emergency, but that mobile medic team can. And they're outfitted with our EMTs or paramedics, and they have the necessary equipment that they can provide medical care until we can lift that person to the engine or to the ambulance that's waiting. We currently have a recruit class of 21 students right now, and that's going well. They are into their third or fourth week. I believe most of them started on July 27th. So we have that class going on now, and that's huge. That's going to help us fill some vacancies. And our peer support team, I use the term PTSD loosely, but it does apply. It is actually a reference to fire personnel as well as public safety as a whole. Earlier this year, we did have a member to commit suicide. We've had several members that have required additional assistance. So that peer support team is just more than just being able to call up your friend. It's someone that's trained to talk to you and know that different signs of hearing different things that they may need to get you to additional help. So that is very huge for us. Opportunities, as we increased our fire prevention staff, we have our fire prevention fees, and that is something we did a brief presentation we're putting together. I want to talk more about that, but as an opportunity, and we can provide you information on that should you need it at a later time.
And Chief, while you're there, just for a quick second, if you would share with both of the commissioners, and as I stated earlier to the sheriff, we have public who are watching and listening right now, but talk just a moment about the fire prevention fees and what we've been missing in this county by not having it, and if you would.
Sir, if you would, Madam Commissioners, have the staff here with me, so I am the fire chief, but this is expertise, okay?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Madam Board of County Commissioners. My name is Derek Crawley for the Record Fire Safety Prevention staff. One of the things that we looked at here as far as the opportunity was as we were looking at the development fees, there's fees for every department that's required per state building codes to review and approve plans. Currently, right now, we have no fees allocated for the services that the Fire Prevention Bureau provides. And as you know, you cannot get a building permit unless the Fire Prevention Bureau review and stamp it. So those fees we looked at as an opportunity just to kind of provide some services or some fees consistent with the services that we're already providing. To moralize, to also provide some cost recovery for the community for the development costs. These are, like I said again, these are services that we're providing. The fee aspect just provides a component to have some cost recovery for the services that we're mandated to provide.
Well, I certainly appreciate you taking a moment to explain that. I know that for our existing businesses, we won't be able to go back, but for new businesses that are starting up as once we get these fees implemented, because a lot of our new businesses that have started up from out of county have been a little bit shocked and surprised that we didn't have the fire prevention fees as they do in so many other counties and municipalities. So this really brings us up to par, so to speak, here in Rockdale County. Again, for those existing businesses, we can't go back, but for those new businesses that are going to start up and begin to start their operations through all of the inspection process, through planning and development in conjunction with the fire department and the fire marshal's office, this will allow us to capture some of these fees and be able to move forward and utilize them in a more positive and progressive way where we've not had them before.
That's correct.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for being a part of that leadership team to make sure. I was a part of the presentation that you did with the executive leadership, and you guys did a fantastic job. I know you're working on some more stuff to come back and really fine tune it, so we'll be interested to see what the final product looked like. But I thought it would be a good idea for both of the commissioners to have an idea of what exactly the fire prevention fees are.
Absolutely.
But do we have an approximate cost associated with the fire prevention fees? Did I miss that?
You mean, well, right now in the draft, I have a draft that I'm working on that outlines what the cost would be. For example, for development projects, the average cost for the plan review is about $150. And that's for the first submittal and second submittal. Keep in mind, most of these development projects, sometimes it's not unusual for them to go to the third or fourth. But again, because this is new, I'm trying to keep it as simplistic and easy to implement and execute as possible, so we're just using flat fees. Some agencies have a fee tied to the size of the project, involves a lot of mathematical formulas. I chose to just keep it simple, just do a flat rate. So on average, most of the fees are going to fall right at about $150.
Okay, that's reasonable.
We like simple.
Yeah, I think it's very reasonable, but
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, and with that in mind, just doing some quick math, just based upon the number of projects and so forth that we reviewed to date, given that $150 fee for the amount of projects that we've reviewed, we would have generated approximately about $40,000.
In 1 year, or how many?
Yeah, like I said, I just started tracking it when I came on board in February. So from February to now.
Wow.
Wow, yeah,
Sounds good. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
wow, that's a salary.
Yeah, so as I said, coming here, oftentimes, probably before COVID, developers were coming in, and they often came, the person that was authorized to write the check was coming with a blank check. And you say, well, we don't charge. Like, you don't charge, what? And so, but as to date, from February to now, that's money that we could have generated when we talk about economic development and sustainability for the county.
Great job, Chief.
All right. So our community outreach, this January we had planned on putting our Citizens Fire Academy, and I know that last year the county had a government academy, but this gives our citizens a closer look at what we do. Yesterday, with some of the hearings, folks were talking about, they didn't necessarily speak to fire, but just exactly what do we do, why do you have all these people? That Citizens Fire Academy gives them a closer look at how the structure of the organization, and it gives them an opportunity, and everybody there is a little firefighter. They get to put the gear on and drag some hose, shoot some water, so those type of things. And our Explorer program for those young citizens that are looking or possibly considering a career in fire. That Explorer program, grabbing them, unlike with Rockdale Career Academy, I think they entered that program at 11th grade or so, but the Explorer program allows us to get them earlier when they're much younger and carries them all the way up. And so by the time they're 18, they're ready to rock and roll.
How young? KJ wants to be a firefighter.
We'll tell him KJ to come on.
Okay.
We got him. Customer service van is something we talked about last year, and I want to reference an incident that's ongoing with us. We're here to serve, and folks dial 911, we're coming. However, we do with our senior population, and we have other populations that require attention, and we have a call that they call out continuously, calling out for the light bulb. They just need their blood pressure checked. They've fallen. They need these various things that we're having to take a piece of equipment out. That customer service van, we would look to equip with 2 firefighter EMTs that's able to go out and respond to these calls. That's going to take some of the weight off 911. And initially, it will be building up a rapport, a spreadsheet, a call center, if you will. And so now we know that every 3 weeks, Miss Mary wants to have her blood pressure checked. So as opposed to her dialing 911, we have this customer service van that's a standard piece of equipment that we operate daily that's going to go out and make contacts with these folks. And also, we have a citizen right now that really needs some assistance from hoarding and just different things. And crews went by the other day, and this was a frequent call. This is someone that actually needs some type of intervention that we're not able to provide just from a 911 perspective. That customer service van, fully staffed, allows us to do that. As we talk about our challenges.
So I have a question.
Yes,
That the
ma'am.
customer service van, is that something that other counties are doing? You've
Yes.
seen this done before?
Yes, Commissioner Williams. Some places have what's called a paramedicine program, and it's a little bit more in-depth. Most often it's outfitted with, of course, a paramedic, a nurse, and or a physician assistant, and in some cases a doctor. And they go out and do actually provide many office visits. But other places, such as in a smaller jurisdiction like this, have that customer service van that still is able to go out, provide blood pressure checks, glucose checks, and things such as that, help arrange other visits, nursing visits, serve as a liaison for other services, protective services, senior services, or whatever is needed. That is what we're looking to provide right now.
I think that's an awesome
Yeah, me
thing
too.
to
Yes.
do.
And this would prevent, I've said it many, many times, whenever we call 911, it's usually fire that gets there first.
Absolutely.
So this would, if it's something like on my street a couple of years ago, there was a gentleman that was having a heart attack, and it looked like the street was on fire. So if we had something like a customer service van, something like that with the paramedics can come instead of fire.
Yes,
fire
and
truck.
piggyback on that a little bit, we, last year, and I thank you all, Board of Commissioners, we requested for 2 medical first responder units
Right.
with transport capabilities, and we're waiting for the arrival of those units. But in the meantime, we implemented 2 quick response units that are outfitted with 2 fire personnel. We've had to put them on hold because of staffing, but they're still there, and it was very instrumental in COVID. And it serves just that purpose, as opposed to that engine rolling out or 2 engines rolling out, not necessarily knowing. That truck, that smaller truck outfitted with 2 personnel and all the medical equipment can respond and provide the services until that ambulance to get there.
Okay.
And
that's
piggybacking on that, with our medical first responder units, we're not looking to take over transport. That is not what we're looking to do. However, as opposed to, if we arrive on scene, as opposed to having 2 medical first personnel in a pickup truck, they're now in a unit. So if that person's having a heart attack, they can scoop them and go, as opposed to waiting on an ambulance.
Right.
And that customer service van will link all that together.
Okay, got it.
All right. So going back to our challenges, staffing, firefighters, instructors, fire EMS, training, logistics for fire and EMS. So as I said, we currently have 21 recruits. However, we still have vacancies. Don't want to jump too far ahead, but NFPA 1710, and I said that way because I would like for you all to research that. It provides recommendations for fire coverage, fire staffing for nationwide, all fire services. We are not meeting that. We, at one point, were having 2 persons per vehicle, per apparatus, and that's just not acceptable. Now we're having 3, but that's through forced hiring. Firefighters already work 24 hours a day. They have families, divorce, marital problems, kids, a whole lot of things go with that because you're gone 24 hours a day. You're missing out a whole lot of life, and now I'm forcing you to have to come in and work because we got to provide the services. We got to keep these units staffed. So I will talk more about that further on as far as our staffing, what we're looking at. Firefighter and EMS instructor, as they talk about chief everywhere, we have a chief of training for fire. We have a chief of EMS for emergency medical services. And there is continuous training annually that we all have to have, fire and EMT. And they orchestrate that, make sure we're up to standards. And so we need those positions. That EMS logistics person, we need more staffing. There's quality assurance, there's supplies, there's a lot of things going on. So it's not about stacking, but it's more than just being effective. We need to be effective and efficient. And in order to do that, we require additional staffing. Fire challenges, fire apparatus, we talked about to include maintenance. So I want to say our oldest piece of equipment right now is 2008. 2006, and the life cycle for a piece of equipment is 10 to 15 years. So as we approach that time, and then there's a maintenance component also, Fleet does a great job working with us and getting our units out as best as they can, even so much that they now have one of their personnel that's taking emergency vehicle technician classes. So that's going to be huge for us because most often, if we have a system that's down, we have to drive to Winder, sometimes Alabama, to get that vehicle replaced. So then that puts us in a reserve, where our reserve units are from 1989, a reserve piece of equipment. This is what we are depending on to not only get us there safely, but to be able to get there and provide you the services that we need. So fire apparatus to include a maintenance program. Last year, early in the year, we were looking at a leasing program along with Executive Director Lewis, and the one we looked at was just really costly, so that's not off the table, but we're just going to get back to it. And what we're looking at is leasing vehicles that's going to include a maintenance on that vehicle, and hopefully at some point in time with a buyout option. But also including that would be a separate maintenance program for our existing equipment. And that way we're able to keep them up to fit more and keep them in service much better time.
Chief, I want to, you referenced some of what we've heard over the last few days, and staff and I have been talking, as well as both of the commissioners, about a lot of what we've heard over the last few days. And one of the several running themes was that show me the money. Mm-hmm. People, not only do they want to see, hear, and understand and know, they need to know where we're spending the money. You talked about the Quint fire truck, the dual operations of that vehicle. You talked about the age of some of the vehicles and the apparatus that you have. I think each and every time, commissioners, that we get a new fire truck or a major piece of equipment to our fire and rescue team, we need to make a big deal out of it. People need to see. You talked about the expectation and the arrival of the 2 transport vehicles. That's a major plus for Rockdale County. You've put emphasis on the fact that you're not going to replace what National EMS is doing, but making sure that we have those transport vehicles there as backups to support. That way we don't leave anybody left in the middle of the road or on the side of the road. But when those vehicles arrive, I'm asking that you would get with public relations, make a big deal, find a central location somewhere here in the county, make a big deal out of it, bring out the community and let them see those vehicles. So that, and we're going to start doing this with not just fire trucks, but a whole lot of this heavy duty equipment stuff that we have in various departments, including water and stormwater, so people will know the magnitude of the money that we're spending, why we need this piece of equipment or these different and various pieces of equipment. When I think about stormwater department and the vac truck, you all heard us talk about that many times throughout the year and what that vac truck does in the different communities. We want to make sure, whether it's a fire apparatus or any of this stuff, when we talk about, because we're doing it all through the year. We're making these purchases. We got to do a better job with showing people this is what you're getting. This is the benefit, and letting them see the features and the benefits as we go forward. So please keep that in mind. When you get those 2 transport vehicles in, let's make a big deal. Let's put them on display, short of having a parade.
Yes, sir. It's actually already in the making. The same day we received and reached out to PR.
If they're here by the 1st of December, they could be in the Christmas parade.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
right. That's right. You
We
can
are
put them on.
expecting one.
Did you hear that?
We're
I like
expecting
that.
So we have one that's trying to get put together, but as far as the Quint, we reached out to the PR the same day, and that's in the making. And we also are looking to have an open house, perhaps the end of September, when we can get through all the budget, and bring everyone out to a central location. We had initially thought about Station 10's location, having the Quint there and different pieces of equipment so folks can come out and see what we do.
I like that idea, especially at Station 10 location. All the folks on the north side are going to be super excited to finally have a fire station on the north side of Rockdale County. That is a big, big deal, knowing that the last station is at Sigmund and 138. What's that station number? Is that? Station 1, right. It takes a good bit of time for that truck to ride down north bound on 138 to Costly Mill and White Road. So that's going to be a big deal.
So I won't go through the rest of the challenges. It gets a little redundant because they all sort of link there together. Jeanette, I'll go to the, thank you. We talk about infrastructure and transportation, relocation of Fire Station 5. We are still in the process of looking for a piece of land for that. There was some conversation early on about partnering with the school board, but that did not pan out. So we're moving ahead and trying to get that, and that's going to be instrumental for that north side as well. Once Station 10 is actually built, and then we can relocate Station 5, it's going to increase that coverage. It's going to be huge for those citizens as far as, say, insurance. insurance and the ISO rating for the fire department, because one of the things they look at in your insurance is how far you are from a fire station, fire hydrant, and things such as that. So once we can get Station 10 built, get Station 5 relocated, that's going to be make a positive, huge economic impact on our citizens. When we talk about plan for relocation of Fire Station 4 and 8, Station 4 is our oldest fire station with still having a tin roof. And it's on the further south side of the county, looking to relocate that to provide better service. And the purchase Station 8. Station 8 right now is owned by the city, as we know, when that merged, and needing our own property so we have better control of it, maintenance of it, upkeep of it, and a better location of it. So that is something we're looking to discuss in the near future. Training complex and Fire Station 10, those things are already in motion, as Executive Director Sanders spoke to. We're hoping to see some construction with that towards the end or first part of the year. We talk about economic development, as Mr. Crawley already spoke to our fire fees. I alluded to with our ISO rating with the building of Station 10 and relocation of Station 5. And the ISO rating is the insurance officer rating, and right now we're a 3. For years we were a 9 or 10, and that means that we are getting better. One of the big things that's going to help us get there is, of course, the building of Station 10 and relocation of Station 5, but also having that fire training complex. We'll be able to provide better services as they come and rate us out.
So, Chief McDaniel, I know you've told us many times what the difference, what it means to be a 9, 10, and what it means to be a 3, but would you say it again for the people that are watching?
As an example, it means it can be as simple as paying $500 on your insurance and getting a $300 allotment, that ISO, because what it's saying is that your fire department, the services that we provide, we are a premier fire department. We are, and we're doing an excellent job of providing services, but we are doing better. We can do better. The better ISO rating we have means that we have all the proper infrastructures in place, and that really speaks to structures. It doesn't speak to the services that we're providing. It speaks to structures. Having enough fire stations and making sure they are centrally located to provide their protection services. As far as the training facility, we have a training building, but having a driver's track, a place that we can pump water and train on that, those all speak to the ISO rating. And the better ISO rating we have says the better the fire department is able to provide those services, and thus the lower the rating, the better we are. And as I said, up under previous fire chief, Chief Morgan, it went from a 9 to a 3. There are still some areas that are outside of that 5 miles or fire hydrant, but we are at a solid 3, and I'm confident that we're hoping to be up for a reinspection the end of the year, and we're going to get to a 2. We will get to a 2, and that's going to be huge. That'll be huge.
Very good.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Accreditation. Accreditation, once again, speaks to the fire department. It says that I can stand here and tell you how well we're doing all day long, but accreditation means that other professionals in our industry recognize that we are a premier fire department. I know that we are. My executive team know that we are, but that accreditation lets everybody know that we are. And that's what we're working towards. We're hoping that we can get that done. And it's a work in progress, but each way along the way, we're becoming better and better. Quality of life, wellness checks. We implemented a Fit for Fire program a couple of years ago, and it wasn't just a physical component. It, more importantly, had a mental component to it. We're contracted with Dr. Carla Moore, More for Life, and she not only does our psychological evaluations for our new hires, but as well as our do wellness checks and be able to provide or facilitate our personnel getting additional mental health assistance should they need it. Annual select physicals used most often when our firefighters come on. They do that pre-hire physical. Our hazmat personnel may have to get an additional physical. We want to implement annual physicals for all our firefighters. We have high blood pressure, heart conditions, and things such as that. There's not necessarily caught until something happens. We don't want to wait till something happens to one of our fire personnel. We want to be productive and catch it before. spot checks community seniors. That goes back to that customer service van I'm talking about, being able to just, hey, go knock on Miss Mary's door every couple of weeks or based on the needs and make sure they're okay. If it's something they need, can we link them to another format of assistance? Education and workforce development. We've already started with our leadership is ownership series, and it's rank specific, starting our sergeants all the way up, lieutenants, captains, battalion chiefs, deputy chiefs, and even as myself, we have to do continuous leadership training. Social involvement, our community open house we talked about, Citizens Fire Academy, and part of that is that community CPR as well as fire extinguisher training.
So, Chief, on the community CPR training, where can citizens find out when you host those trainings, the frequency of those, if there's a citizen that want to come and be certified through CPR or perhaps recertified or make sure they stay current? How can they do that?
So we're working on getting that on our webpage, and I believe there is some contact information for Lieutenant White. On our web, Lieutenant Elizabeth White is one of our fire safety educators, along with fire safety educator Jasmine Johnson. And once they go to that website, they're able to phone call in or email her. And if worst case, you can always call fire headquarters at 770-278-8401 and let whomever answer the phone know what you're calling for, and we will get you with the appropriate persons.
I really appreciate that. There's been an uptick in people showing interest in wanting to be CPR trained all across everywhere.
Yes.
I think the more we can put that information out there on our website, the Fire and Rescue's website, more and more people will know how to link in and contact you all. I think it's important we get across every piece of social media that we have. So if you would, be sure and take this and communicate with the PR department and make sure they add it in a more robust kind of way, because there's been a lot of folks talking about showing interest, should I say, in CPR training.
Yes, sir. So our current organizational chart, and if I would, so this is where we are right now, and the biggest difference between our current organizational chart and the proposed is the number of firefighters. So if I may go ahead to the next slide. This is our proposed organizational chart, and nothing's changing as a reference to fire chief or the executive team or the battalion chiefs, but you would note over there on the suppression, on the previous slide, currently on A, we have 3 shifts: A shift, B shift, C shift, 24-hour shifts. Firefighters work every 3rd day, on 24, off 48. Currently, we only have approximately 34 where we allowed it for 34 personnel. Some shifts are a little shorter than that. As I spoke to earlier, you're doing what's called a force hire. Persons are notified in advance that, hey, and you're coming up on a force hire, so they know not to make plans and things such as that. But mind you, some of them already are signing up to work overtime to fulfill those vacancies. And so they're working. You know, it's almost like they're working a 72-24. Mm-hmm. But increasing our firefighters to each shift, making sure we have the same number of firefighters across 3 shifts. So I want to go back to the NFPA 1710. NFPA 1710 recommends 4 fire personnel per every piece of equipment you have. Mm-hmm. Fire engines, fire trucks, now of course our medical transport units too, our squad units, any specialty equipment you have or our mainline equipment, we should have 4 personnel. The point of that is twofold. First of all, it's going to cut down on our overtime. It's going to cut down on the wear and tear on our firefighters. Our firefighters are working hard and they're tired. But more importantly, let me put it to you this way. I want you to really hear what I'm saying. They recommend on a low hazard, which is a single family fire. Your house catch on fire. Your homes catch on fire. They recommend 15 personnel to respond to that fire. Well, I just told you sometimes we were operating with 2 or perhaps 3. The city of Atlanta covers 135 square miles with 35 stations, 5 at the airport, 30 in the city. Rockdale County Fire Rescue covers 132 square miles with 9 stations. Atlanta's more populated. We have a lot of green space, but nonetheless, it's 132 square miles that has to be covered by 9 stations. Sometimes we're equipped with firefighters, 2 firefighters, 3 firefighters, they're tired. So to respond to your single-family house fire, and we want to try to reach that 15, we're going to have to send at least 3 or 4 pieces of equipment. And we ain't got but 9. So what's going on in the rest of the county? So the better we can get this number up to 56 personnel, that gives us 4 pieces of people on every piece of equipment we have. So now we're able to meet that NFPA standard and provide safe, effective, prompt quality service to our stakeholders while maintaining safety for our fire personnel. Because if we're not safe, we can't provide that service. And what we're doing right now, are we effective? Absolutely, we're gonna get it done. We're committed to that. We're dedicated to that. But there's still, just because you're getting it done, people say, well, you're doing it. That's not enough. It needs to be effective, efficient, and safe.
Chief Mack, before you move forward, first of all, thank you for that mini educational piece you just gave us and all of the people listening and watching. You talked earlier about hosting an open house, perhaps out at the new location for Fire Station number 10. Well, when you set that tent up and host that open house and bring the apparatus out, I'd love to see you have either some type of running digital piece or somebody talking and explaining, teaching our general public the importance of the number of firefighters you have to have at a fire station, and when a unit of apparatus, piece of equipment runs out to a house fire or any type of emergency. That is being missed and perhaps even lost in terms of understanding with our general public that we have to have a required number of personnel to move every time the alarm sounds at the fire station. The other thing I'd like for you to do, if you just take a moment, because we did this with the sheriff a little while ago, in the spirit of there's so many chiefs and so many captains and so many lieutenants, take just another second, if you would, just explain the breakdown in the hierarchy of the fire department with your assistant chiefs, deputy chiefs, lieutenants, captains, and so forth, and so people have a little bit. And then I think when you do the open house, you'll have more time to really expound on that and explain it in a different way. But can you just touch on it a moment?
So our rank structure, of course, I am the fire chief for Rockdale County Fire Rescue. But as much as I know, and I'm a legend in my own mind, I don't know everything. That's why I have 2 divisions, operations, administration. I have a deputy fire chief of operations. I have a deputy fire chief of administration. Beneath them, I have an assistant fire chief of support services. Below that, we have 6 battalion chiefs, 2 per shift. We have a North Division and a South Division. Every day, 24 hours a day, there's a chief that works that north side, there's a chief that manages that south side. One chief has about 4 stations up under him, one chief has 5. Well, we talk about a term that's used heavily in the fire service as well as public sector, span of control. Mm-hmm. Span of control. Mm-hmm. Me as a fire chief, I can't oversee everyone. I can oversee my 2 deputy chiefs. I can manage them. They're going to manage and my assistant fire chief, and it trickles down. They oversee those battalion chiefs. Battalion chiefs oversee the captains. Rockdale County has a structure that's a little bit different from most places. We have 9 stations, we have 9 captains. In most jurisdictions, every shift has a captain. In Rockdale County, we don't. We have 1 captain per station. The other 2 shifts are ran by a lieutenant. So when we talk about we're rank heavy, we're not. That captain is responsible for district training and things associated to bring all those stations together. And then from the lieutenants, we have our sergeants, which was reclassed or renamed 2 years ago. They're essentially our drivers. They're the ones responsible for driving to the incident safely, providing water, whatever services is needed, the truck, that's what they are. Then we have our firefighters. So starting from the bottom up, you have firefighters, sergeants, which are our drivers, lieutenants, which serve as our officers in charge on 2 of the shifts, along with our captains. We have our battalion chiefs, where there are 2 per shift, 1 on the south side and 1 on the north side. Then we have our assistant chief of support services, which serves as a liaison between operations and administrations. Then we have our deputy chief of administration, our deputy chief of operations, and then you have the fire chief.
So, Chief, you did a great job with that. I, again, ask that you would do that again during the open house. I think it's so important, or every opportunity that you have to teach, explain, and inform our general public. Let me be the devil's advocate for just 1 second.
Sure.
You have 6 battalion chiefs. Why can't one battalion chief work the whole county?
Sir, as I said, we cover 132 square miles with 9 stations. City of Atlanta covers 132 square miles with 30 stations. Oftentimes, I want to say last week, there was a major incident on the north side. At the same time, there was a major accident on the north side. That chief can't beat it both. And although we have firefighters and fire personnel on the scene managing that, different resources are needed. That battalion chief is there to make sure that they have everything that they need to mitigate that scene, and they also are able to communicate with 911, with myself, with other jurisdictions. That's why one person can't cover this whole area of 132 square miles.
And I appreciate you answering that, Chief. I'm aware of that. I think the citizens need to know, and I think when you implement and execute your Citizens Fire Academy, that's another opportunity to educate the general public as to why we have the leadership change that we have in our fire and rescue department, just as the sheriff explained over in the sheriff's office. People don't know.
Yes.
The average person, they're not to know. They don't know. I think it helps when we can slow down for a moment and explain, because in their mind, they just say, there's tons of chiefs and captains. They don't know the different functions and the auxiliaries of the fire and rescue department in terms of why the needs are there. But we have to take a moment and explain that to them so they'll know. So I'm encouraging you to just listen to all of what we've been hearing over the last few days, Commissioners. It's so important that we just continue to put it in the ears and the minds and the faces of our citizens so they will understand why the need is there. And you give a super fantastic example and explanation to my question about the battalion chiefs. Certainly the size of the county and the growth of the county, the need is very demanding.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So we'll go to our budget summary, please, Jeanette. Thank you. So our proposed changes for FY23 are for operational expenses is $183,485, and for personnel services and benefits, the change would be $1,110,272, and we can get into that on the next slide as we break it down. Emergency medical service operational requests. As I said, we operate 2 medical we operate 2 quick response units along with each of our engines that provide emergency medical services. Oftentimes, we are the first on scene, and we're able to provide that medical care, that medical coverage. So the costs due to COVID, due to inflation, are going up. And we need gloves, Band-Aids, IV fluids, needles, tourniquets, all of those things, it costs. And so that thus, you'll see that as the increase of $25,000. Our mental wellness, as I said, right now, when we started this program, we were working what we had. We came back last year and asked and received, but now looking to increase that by $13,000 to be able to allow us to make sure that we are doing the wellness checks. We're able to provide our personnel with extended services should they need them, as well as to cover our psychological exams for our new employees. Professional service and leadership development, very important. We have the operation side of the fire department, but I often speak about the business of the fire department. It is a business, and we must operate it as such. And with that, business requires great leadership. Great leadership. It doesn't just come with years of experience. We have people that's been on the job 20 years and really doing that 1 year over 20 times, and it add no value. So that is important for our professional service leadership, and it gives buy-in, it gives ownership, and quite honestly, many of our members are looking forward to it. We've already started a series with all our officers, and they already did relatively well. So wanting to expound that even further, and that will tie in as well to our ISO and our accreditation. When they look at things such as that, what we're doing as far as leadership training, they look for those type of things. So it's important that we do it. Special operations, as I said, we have the medical mobile response team, we have our swift water team, we have our hazmat team. Equipment costs. Last year when we had the drowning, I received a call, and I'm just being transparent, received a call from one of my battalion chiefs and said, hey, some of the neighbors let us use their kayaks. I said, what? I said, no, tomorrow we're gonna go to Dick's Sporting Goods somewhere, and we went out and we bought 4. So that we can get out and search.
Absolutely.
That's what we're there to provide. I appreciate our community, but that speaks to community coming together with fire.
It does.
But we have to be able to provide those services on our own.
Absolutely.
All right, and so that's why we are. That's why you see that cost there with the different specialty operations we have. Emergency medical services. We just talked about the justification for that. Sort of went through all of that. So next slide, please. Personnel requests. EMS logistics quality assurance instructor. We have to turn in to NIFRs to our fire reports and EMS reports. And quite honestly, we got tagged about 2 weeks ago because we had not submitted our reports in properly. Fortunately, we had everything, oversight of getting it submitted in properly, and we were able to do that. That EMS logistics person is going to be able to do that on a regular basis, and it serves twofold with Fireside as well. We have fire reports, we have EMS reports, and the biggest thing for me that's important about that is examining those reports. You know, everybody likes fighting the fire, nobody likes doing the report.
I know that's
And so they try to take shortcuts. I'm a firefighter by heart. I know that. I've seen it. Having that logistics person there will do the quality assurance, doing random checks on reports, sending out reports, making sure that they are complete. So when we do submit them to the state, we're not getting tagged. We're not sitting in someone's courtroom because a family is suing because the care was not documented properly. So that is very important.
Chief Mack, can you go back for me under special operations?
Yes, ma'am.
You've listed 11 special operations teams, and I don't think the public knows how many special operations teams and what they are, and I was wondering if you could go through them really quickly so that everybody can see how comprehensive your special operations teams are.
This is Assistant Fire Chief Robert Kelly.
Thank you.
Chief Robert Kelly.
Hello, afternoon.
Chief Kelly.
Thank you.
And really, under Chief McDaniel's administration, we've actually been able to grow our team and really provide a lot more services. With the growth in the community, we recently added a trench team, which for those that don't know, they dig trenches, the piping goes in, the electrical goes in, all this goes underground. So they're required to have trenching around this. So when they're working underground, the ground doesn't collapse on them. Well, they don't always stay in the trench or follow the trench. So now we have a trench team that is trained to be able to provide a service to these people to assist them if the trench was to collapse, dirt falls on top of them. Now we can go in, we have all the proper equipment and the trained personnel to be able to assist them. We also added the swift water team. We have a lot of people, as Director Sanders was talking earlier, the rivers, kayaking, the new takeout point. Now we're able to provide the kayaks. We have the trained personnel. They went to North Georgia. They received the training. They come back. They teach the training to more members. And we have, so of those 11 services, all 11 we train on them monthly. So like January would be our drone team. February might be our dive team. So we give them a month and we train on those services. So I believe next week, actually, we're doing swiftwater training. So we're actually, personnel are going to get out there. They're going to get into the river. We're going to have a scenario where we have people that are swimming in known locations where we have swimmers. And we're going to go in there and just recreate the scenario. We also added ATVs and UTVs, so those are going to come in and be a part of the scenario. So we have a team that can go to the river, and then we have a team that can come in and transport them from the river to the EMS unit waiting on standby. We also we have a drone team. So now, if we don't know where these patients are located, we know they're on the river, we kind of know an area they're in, we can take the drones, we can fly over them, we can find out exactly where they are, and then we can send the team after them to find them. We have a wilderness rescue, we have all the trails, so we have people that like to adventure off the trails sometimes. So we also have a team that can go in there that's properly trained to assist them, locate them, find them, use the ATVs that we've now acquired, and also transport them back to a med unit waiting on them.
Thank you.
Chief Kelly, you really, you took us to class there. And I'm sure a lot of people didn't know that we had that level of sophistication with our fire and rescue all throughout the county. I mean, you talked about the trench, the drone, you talked about the kayaks, and I really appreciate hearing, God bless the child that has his own. I appreciate what Chief Mack said about the community is supporting us when we had an incident, but it's nothing like having your own equipment and we're not having to wait, because you do know that time is of the essence when you're in the middle of an emergency. So to have your own piece of equipment so you can put it in the water or execute it right there on the spot is a whole lot better than waiting on mutual aid or waiting on some citizen who has the ATV or a kayak to say, hey, you can borrow mine. But that makes a big, big difference, and certainly do appreciate understanding special operations. Good question, Commissioner.
And there's more, if I may, just go through these. The special operations teams are high-angle trench, confined space, swift water, structural collapse, wilderness rescue, hazmat, dive, drone, bike medic, and SWAT medic.
Wow.
That's 11 special operations teams within our fire.
And the SWAT medics actually ride out with sheriffs quite frequently. I almost want to say maybe once or so a week, they're getting a call out to go, and they're there to support the sheriffs, the deputies, to make sure that they are safe. And if in the event there is an incident, they have medical attention right there for them.
Absolutely.
So, Chief Mack, I have to ask you this question I did with Sheriff Levitt. We won't stay on it long, but let me just say this. As this whole new pandemic of monkeypox is picking up across the metro, certainly it's going to make its way here sooner or later. Your teams are responding. I think you've educated us that majority of the calls that you receive are medical in nature, not always fire calls. What are you putting in place in terms of being proactive and preparing for that first monkeypox call?
We're going to continue to do what we're doing. Even when COVID started, in our profession, it's just not about having that fire gear. We have gloves, masks, eye protection gloves. And so we're pushing that down. We're talking heavy to our personnel about that. And that's what we're going to continue to do. Getting with 911, there's special protocol that questions they ask in the event of COVID, in the event of we need to gear it up for monkeypox. So that gives us an idea if we need to double glove, double mask, take extra precautions in the event. So we're going to continue doing what we're doing, but taking it up just a notch.
Well, we're certainly glad to hear that, and glad to know that you and your leadership team are already talking about it to the responders who are responding to the calls out there. Okay.
All right, so our fire training instructor, right now we have a chief of training. And once again, that chief of training's responsibility is to make sure that the training facility has all that's needed. They're looking for the newest and best ways of providing fire training and researching and things such as that. And then we have that captain who's more of that administrative to actually implement programs. And right now we have a recruit coordinator over there, which is positioned, someone we pull from staff to oversee the recruits to make sure that all their training is done in a fashionably order. But needing to increase that is someone we pull in when we need to. As I said earlier in this presentation, there's annual certifications that fire personnel have to have on the fire side and the EMS side. Thus, there's continuous education. So if people are wondering, what are y'all doing? You don't have a recruit class. We're still training. We're still learning. And we need that sergeant there to help with that instructional component. Right now, we do have some folks that are coming in. We have many of our personnel that have their Fire Instructor 1 or 2 certification. However, there are still for consistency, effectiveness, and efficiency, we need to increase that fire training staff. And that's the same thing with that EMS logistics person. Right now we have Chief Jordan. He's our Chief of Emergency Medical Services. And when we're training our firefighters, recruits on EMS, and we're doing our continuing education, most often he's having to conduct that in conjunction with coordinating that, or we're paying someone outside, trying to pull someone off shift. We need consistent, steady staff because we have to have these certifications. If we don't have them, we can't operate. Firefighter EMT, yes, we have a recruit class of 21, but we still have probably maybe 3 or 4 vacancies, I believe. But as I said a couple of slides back, NFPA 1710 recommends 4 persons per piece of equipment. We have engines, we have ladders, we have hazmat units, we have our dive units, we have various pieces of equipment. We need 4 personnel per equipment. So if someone calls in, we're not scrambling to hire someone. We're not forcing someone to work that's tired, got other personal things going on, because we have the staff. Does things happen? Absolutely. But increasing our staffing allows us to mitigate those instances much easier. Emergency vehicle technician, yes, we have a gentleman over at Fleet Services that's currently getting that training, but having someone in-house, because that person at Fleet Services, when they're not working on a piece of equipment, they're going to be servicing they have more than one job other than fire. The county have needs other than fire needs, but having someone dedicated to fire. We have 2 EMS logistic persons, 2 fire maintenance specialist persons right now that are able to do certain things, small things. But oftentimes when there's a problem with a fire truck or engine up under the hood, we're having to send it to Winder or Alabama, or it just sits there until someone can come to us. Having someone on staff allows us to keep our units in service and ready to go.
So I have a question
Yes,
about
ma'am.
the 30 firefighter EMTs. Is that over and above the 21 recruits that you have right now?
Yes, ma'am, that's additional request. Now, of that 30, several of them, as we prepare for the opening of Station 10, we're going to need personnel too. So it's 30 that we're asking for, but if you want to break it down specifically, it's 18 that we're asking to offset the number that we have already. 18 additional firefighters will allow us to increase our staffing levels to where they need to be according to the standards.
Okay, thank you.
And we've covered that. Thank you, Janetta. And that brings us to the end of this presentation. Are there any additional questions?
Commissioner Washington, any questions for the chief?
No, thank you. Thank you.
Commissioner Williams?
So do you have plans for another recruit class this year, or?
Yes. In my mind, the legend that I am, yes. We would have at least another 2 classes if possible. We can get because, all right, so Executive Director Sanders, we're talking about Station 10 being about opening up maybe this time next year, possibly, if everything goes well. Yeah, the end of the year of 2023. So of that 30, that 12 that we're talking about for Station 10, so let's talk about the 18. We'll focus on the 18. Yes, we would love to have another recruit class this year, even if we had to break that in half, to take 9 now, maybe 9 the first of the year, and then by April or May of next year, because it takes a good 9 months or so to train a firefighter. So when we start talking about the end of the year, the end of 2023 for Station 10, we need to start training those firefighters around April or so.
So when you have a recruit class, do all of them stay on with Rockdale County, or do they?
Yes,
hire other places?
our retention rate is pretty good. Since I've been here, the first class I hired was April of 2018, and 3 of those personnel are not here, but it's for disciplinary measures, and not because we trained them, they went somewhere else. So our retention is pretty good here.
Okay, great.
And Commissioner, keep in mind, there's a current class right now of 21 recruits. That's happening right now.
Right,
And
those 30 that she's asking for
Right.
is over and above those 20.
that's correct.
That's for vacancies that we currently have.
Right, and the Fire Station 10, where we have SPOS money already funded to build and construct that firehouse, one of the reasons we haven't moved forward, we don't have firefighters to put it, we can't put a fire station up and not have firefighters to go in it and not have apparatus. But planning ahead is what she was talking about, responding to your question about next year and the end
And if
of
I
the year.
may tag on that a little bit, when I stand before you, we stand before you, we're as open and honest. But if I were to come back and say, well, you asked for 18, we gave you, we have to talk about when we lose. So we have 21 recruits right now. In a perfect world, all 21 are going to make it through recruit school. Of that number, it's about a 10% lost. So whereas right now our vacancies are filled, minus 2 or 3, right now I want to say we have about 3 vacancies. We can have upward of 7, maybe 4 recruits don't make it from the fire side or the EMS side. So that is why, so even when we hire 18, at one point, Executive Director Holmes, we created a separate position number. Our firefighter pay grade is at a 40. We have what's called a 40R. So we hire those recruits at a lower salary than their firefighter salary. And once they've completed all training, they're sworn in and made whole, they go to the 43.9, which is the current salary. Right now they come in at 40,000 some change as a recruit. So what we were doing is hiring above. If we have 10 vacancies, we hire 14. We hire 14 recruits because we know we're going to lose somebody one way or the other, and that gives us an opportunity to stay sort of on top of things. So right now that's what our ask is, but if we were to come and ask more, that is why, to give you something to hold on to. All right?
Thank you.
Thank you all for your time. Have a great day.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you. Director Lewis, we are rocking and rolling.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed, we are. Thank you, Board. We are now going to take a break for lunch. We will resume at 1:30, where we'll have 2 presentations this afternoon from Emergency Management Agency and Technology Services.
Have you already asked them to be ready?
Yes, indeed, sir.
Okay.
I saw Director Morgan here earlier.
We'll be back at 1:30. Enjoy your lunch.
Thank you.